I move we authorize the mayor to appoint Lee Moore to the electric utility board.
Second. Motion, Harrison, second, Freeman, that we appoint Lee Moore to the electric utility board. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Lee Moore, congratulations and welcome to the electric utility. Thank you. We will be getting with you, actually, the proper people, not me probably, we'll be getting with you to let you know what the next steps will be. Okay, new business item number 2, consider approving ordinance number
2438.
2438 to provide for an electric utility advisory board for the purpose of providing advice and guidance to the city council on the electric utility, and to further repeal ordinance number 2296 and amend and repeal section 13.20.010 and 13.25.010 of the Gardner Municipal Code. This is something that we've been talking about at length for quite some time. Staff has not put together any information on this. I would start the conversation, if it's necessary, to open the floor, and if there's somebody that has comment that brings new information or clarity to information being brought forward previously, I would suggest now would be a good time for it. However, in the absence of staff presentation and before we on the council begin to discuss it, I would open the floor to public comments. If there's someone in the audience that would like to make public comments about new business item number 2, invite them to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard. Eric Schultz, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Eric Schultz, 936 East Cottage Creek here in Gardner. Currently chairman of the Electric Utility Board, former City Council, former Planning Commission. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. I'm going to be fairly brief. I know that may come as a surprise, but I will be brief. I have boiled this down to what I think is one fairly salient point that I plan to share with you. We have discussed at length, both in these chambers and without these chambers, this particular topic. The purported issues with the existing ordinance, whether they be issues or not. We have a difference of opinion on that be as it may. I have 3 documents in front of me this evening that I will be glad to share with the clerk. Like to read a portion of each for you. The first is Charter Ordinance number 1 from the City of McPherson, Kansas. Subject of that charter ordinance is the use of utility revenues. Starting with Section 2, disbursement of revenue. The revenue derived by the city from the sale and consumption of water, fuel, power, or light shall not be paid out or disbursed except for the purpose of operating, renewing, or extending the plant or distribution system from which such revenue was derived, the payment of interest on outstanding bonds issued for the construction, extension, or purchase thereof, and the payment of the salaries of the employees. Ad infinitum. Next, I'm going to refer you to the existing ordinance 2296, which is under consideration for repeal tonight. Specifically, Section 4, subsection J of that ordinance. Title of that section is Use of Utility Funds. Subject to existing agreements in place prior to the passage of this ordinance, all electric utility revenue shall be directed to the provision of electric utility services unless the transfer of revenues constitutes a payment of a traditional franchise tax or payment in lieu of taxes, pilot. Finally, I refer you to what's under consideration tonight for passage. Nowhere in this document is the use of utility funds addressed. That is a primary and salient problem with the ordinance that you have in front of you tonight. Should you vote to pass this ordinance in the form that it exists in front of you tonight, it is my belief that you are proclaiming for every voter in this city, every ratepayer in this city, that is your intention to commingle the funds raised as rates and revenues from this utility with the other funds that come into the city hall. That defeats the purpose of a transparent government. And based on that, I would respectfully request you do further homework and vote against the passage of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm Lee Moore, 521 East Dogwood, and the risk of wearing out my welcome, thought I would...
You just got here, Lee.
I know. Thought I would stand up and speak on, just from my experience on the BPU Exploratory Committee. And I'd like to echo Eric's sentiments also regarding transparency. It's very important to me. As a citizen and as a ratepayer. I'm just going to read from the summary and conclusion of the white paper that I wrote with several of my esteemed colleagues on the BPU Exploratory Committee. And for those of you that don't know, that was a committee we did late last year.
Actually, late 2011 to March of 2012,
right.
We presented findings.
And that was just to explore the possibility and the reasoning behind setting up a board of public utility. And what we did during that committee was we studied various other utility setups around the country and around the state. And of course, we looked at our own electric utility for its own, for its own merits and its own success. And basically, I'm just going to read the summary and conclusion. I mean, you guys, many of you have already been briefed on this. I mean, we gave the presentation last year. But the summary and conclusion basically states, Gardner City Council has the responsibility and investment of time required to manage public utilities which other municipalities in Johnson County do not. Implementing a BPU will allow the Gardner City Council to devote more time to other city business. Gardner's current form of, in this case it was water and wastewater that we were studying, but this also applies to the electric utility, which we've already seen the success of that, and I think it's proven out. But Gardner's current form of water and wastewater governance inherently lacks sufficient time and focus, which has led to the following. And then we listed a number of things that were, at least as of last year, were true of the water and wastewater. And that's that rates included subsidies which hide the true cost of each service, impeding transparency and comparability. Utility rate studies have been untimely and rate changes were inadequate. Utility service revenues have been used for non-utility purposes. There is a $32 million backlog of scheduled maintenance. Additional costs when scheduled maintenance projects were delayed. Decisions made for political purposes rather than sound business reasons. Utility management was not sufficiently empowered to make financial decisions. And for the aforementioned reasons, it is the conclusion of this committee that the governance and oversight of Gardner's water and wastewater utilities be placed under an independent board of public utilities